Welcome to the weekend edition of Your Morning. Here's what's coming up for you today.
Oh, this was so fun. I spoke with Wylde and Jax Irwin, who are back with their new podcast.
Also ahead, the playwright behind Beyond, Ken Dryden, reflects on that moment in time in Montreal during the 70s.
But first, how tariffs are catching up with the price of food. Loblaw is warning consumers prices will likely surge on most tariff-hit food items. The company says it limited the number of items affected by tariffs since the trade war started, but as its pre-tariff inventory starts to run low, that number could surge in coming weeks. For a closer look at these price increases, I'm joined this morning by Bruce Winder, retail expert. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me on, Anne-Marie.
All right, so Loblaw is warning there's going to be price increases coming to as many as 3,000 to 6,000 items in the coming weeks. I think everybody's wondering what's going to be affected. So can you walk through some of these items for us?
Yeah, I think we're at the stage now where some of the packaged goods items are going to be affected. So, you know, the produce and the vegetables was probably affected right away because you can't inventory those kind of products. But yeah. Loblaw, like other grocers, inventoried a number of packaged goods, sort of the stuff in the middle of the grocer. And the inventory is depleted now. So the new shipments coming in are going to be subject to some of the countermeasures, the counter tariffs the Canadian government put in place. And that's where you're going to see some of the increases.
And that, I'm just thinking things like cereals, boxed pastas, soups, things like that.
Yeah, things like that, health and beauty aids, you know, those kind of products.
How much of an increase are we talking about?
It's hard to really know. I mean, technically, you know, the product increase is going to be 25% from a cost perspective. Obviously, Loblaw and other folks are going to try to negotiate with suppliers. The other thing that Loblaw has done and others have done is try to change source to buy from Canadian to avoid this scenario, or buy from other countries outside the U.S. to avoid this scenario. But there are some items you just can't get from other spots.
Well, last month, Loblaw released its annual food inflation report, and in it, it showed a price increase on things like meat, pork, meat, pork, chicken, and beef, plus there was coffee on that list, eggs, and nuts. How much of that increase is because of the trade war?
Not really. It's not really related to that as far as I know. Each of those industries has sort of a unique situation that usually involves supply and demand. And there could be everything from, you know, geopolitical issues to weather patterns that have maybe tightened up supply, right? So each category has its own story. But really, I think what we're seeing now over the next several weeks are going to be the real change caused by the countermeasures the government's put in place.
Obviously, Loblaw isn't the only chain that sells groceries in this country. So should we expect to see other grocery stores raise their prices around the same time and by the same amount?
I would expect so. You know, I think that all the grocers are in the same boat. It's really an industry issue because you're importing the same kind of product from the U.S., right? So it's going to be probably across the board with all grocers.
And it just leads to more tough decisions for families of what to put in the cart and what to leave on the shelves. You know, if people are thinking ahead, they're trying to plan ahead, they've got summer coming up, when can we expect to see the full effect of tariffs on food items?
It sounds like over the next several weeks is going to, you know, several weeks, several months. That assumes that things don't escalate further, right? Which they could. Hopefully they don't. Hopefully President or Prime Minister Carney has a meeting with Prime Minister Trump and negotiates something in the next few weeks. But, you know, we're probably going to see sort of a steady state here in the next, you know, month or two in terms of what prices is going to look like. And I think some retailers like Loblaw have tried to give consumers a choice by using a T to show which items are affected so that they can try to maneuver around the increased priced items.
Obviously, Bruce, you follow this closely. You were expecting price increases to come because you can't, you know, put tariffs on something and then not change the price and still survive as a business. But what are you watching for in the next couple of weeks?
I'm really watching for the consumer reaction. I'm really all on social media and in the media. I'm also watching for how the grocers respond to this and how they signal it, what tools they use to communicate with consumers. I mean, Loblaws has been pretty transparent about it, which is good. Looking to see if other folks are going to be transparent about what's happening too.
Bruce Winder, retail expert, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Take care.
Coming up, have you seen that Russian cargo jet at Pearson Airport? It's been there for 3 years. We ask, why is it still there?
So if you've been to Pearson Airport at any point in the last 3 years, you may have seen that massive Russian plane just parked there. The cargo jet has been a fixture at Pearson, and people are constantly asking, what is the deal with this plane? The aircraft has been caught up in a lengthy and costly legal battle that's worked its way up to one of the highest courts in Ontario, and now there are concerns that it might not be able to fly. Joining me now with more on this from Montreal is John Braddock. He is a lecturer at McGill University's School of Aviation Management. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Lindsay.
I mean, if you've been to Pearson, you most likely have seen this thing, right? I have videos on my phone from like 2 years ago. It has been there since 2022. It was seized by the Canadian government officially in 2023. What is the latest in this legal battle?
Well, I think the Russian airline that owns this airplane really is starting to make some public commentary about, this has been an illegal seizure by the Canadian government, and that they are fighting the transfer of ownership that has been initiated in recent months in the courts. So this is a legal battle at this point in time of who owns this airplane, and there's over $1 million parking charge associated with this airplane already sitting in Pearson since February of 2022. So it's a legal battle at this point in time to get the keys to run this airplane. The Russian airline is very upset. The fact that people have been going on board this airplane and checking out the mechanics and checking out some of the operating practices of the airplane illegally as far as they're concerned. So it's a battle going on at this point in time.
I want to ask you about, there's $1 million parking charge. Is that serious?
Yeah.
So,
over 1,000 days, 1,000 days at $10.65 a day.
So, and then who is that? I mean, where do you send that bill?
Right now, it's going to the Canadian government. It's going to the GTAA is sending that parking bill. Well, it's outstanding. So it's been a question of who's eventually going to pay for that bill.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one of the many storylines here. I want to ask you about what I said off the top. This aircraft has been sitting there for years. It is considered no longer airworthy. So walk us through that.
Yeah, typically when you park an airplane for an extended period of time, you take measures to protect the systems on board the airplane. These are mechanical parts, of course, and they need to get tested and they need to get worked on. It's like taking your car and just storing it and not even bother doing anything on the oil engine or the transmission. These require constant tuning up and constant working to allow them to be used on any moment's notice. So this airplane has not really moved in 3 years. So there's a lot of mechanical parts and a lot of mechanical components on this airplane, as well as maybe electronics that really need to have a look at before you, in fact, let this airplane fly. And it has to pass Transport Canada airworthiness requirements. So that's a major hurdle. Again, expensive.
I bet. And there's been no maintenance on this whatsoever. It's just been sitting there.
To the best of my knowledge, no. The engine, usually when you park an airplane for a long period of time, you want to cover at least the engines. And these engines have been open to the elements ever since it's been here since 2022. So who knows what's living in those engines?
So Ottawa's plan was to seize the aircraft and then deliver it to Ukraine as part of an aid package. But if it can't fly anymore, I mean, what options does the government have if it wins control of the plane in court?
Well, I think, the objective, I think, from the government's perspective is to get this airplane back to the Ukrainians. And so the Ukrainians are going to have to take control of the, airworthiness requirements for this airplane. So we'll need Ukrainian staff. You'll need Ukrainian components. There are no components in Canada that fit this airplane. So there's a need to get parts, equipment, people, test equipment into Toronto to basically get this airplane back into flyable condition. So that's a major investment, and I'm not even sure that this airplane, can be airworthy. And if it cannot be airworthy, I think the only option we have at that point in time is to take it apart and look at for salvage value.
All right. Well, John Braddock, we appreciate the update on this thing. Thank you.
My pleasure, Lindsay. Have a good day.
Ahead on your morning, Wylde and Jax are back with a new podcast and new viral moments.
Let's welcome Gabby to Left on Red.
I want to take you back to 1970s Montreal. Political tension, but a family falling apart. And for young Oren Safdie, Canadians goalie Ken Dryden brought calm in the chaos. His new play, Beyond Ken Dryden, looks back.
The Canadians call up a new goaltender from their farm club. Originally from Hamilton, Ontario, Ken Dryden debuts in a game against the Pittsburgh Penguins and leads the team to a 5-1 victory followed by a string of 5 consecutive victories. Now, this is no ordinary goalie. He wears number 29. He stands at 6'4", weighs 200 pounds, and wears a mask that looks like a galvanized pretzel, giving him the impression of a Roman gladiator. I imagine
you're watching a clip from the play right there. This is about a legendary hockey player, but it's also about family, identity, and the power of finding stability in unlikely places. Joining us this morning is the playwright behind Beyond, Ken Dryden. Oren Safdie, great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
I saw you nodding when I said it's more than just a hockey player.
Well, he was at the time, yes, definitely. He was not the norm of the hockey player that that came to mind. For one thing, he went to school and went to a very good school, Ivy League school. So for parents that were looking at their kids who were playing outside and not doing their studies, he was a good role model for that.
He was.
Yeah.
The play is deeply personal for you.
Very much so, yes.
What made now the right time to tell this story?
Well, I was teaching a class at St. Olaf College in Minnesota last year, and it was personal narrative writing. And all my students were writing about their childhoods, and it got me thinking about writing my own story and what was that. And I realized that Montreal was a great place to grow up, but there were a lot of difficult things as well. My family was coming apart. It wasn't the only one because, you know, we think of the 60s as free love, but it was the 70s where you kind of got the fallout. A lot of parents and families were breaking up, and on top of that, province of Quebec was about to split up. So everything was coming apart, and it was also a great time to be there. And right around the time of, 71, Ken Dryden comes to the Canadians, and the Canadians dominate the decade with six Stanley Cups in, I think, 8 years. And I really believe that that's what held us all together in some ways. You know, when you kind of go forward and you know that your team's going to be contending or winning a Stanley Cup, it makes you feel very positive about things, and it unites the city because, French, English, we didn't care. When you're in the arena or where you're in the streets, I love watching those scenes when they cut away when a goal's scored here and everyone's jumping together because it shows you how important these sports teams are to bringing us together when we have divisions.
That's such a beautiful answer. That right there is the study of why sport unites us.
Yes.
Yeah. You grew up in your father, Moshe Safdie's architectural project, Project 67. You spoke about the separatist movement that was happening in Quebec. Your parents, they were splitting up, and then there was a house fire that you saved your family from. So when you see all of that you were going through, and then you pause and you watch the Canadians play.
Right.
I imagine that so many other people could relate to that story of growing up in Montreal in the 70s.
Yeah, I think it's quite universal, and it doesn't only have to be Montreal. There's, children go through many different things, and we sometimes overrate the sports hero. But when you're in a time and things are rough and you turn on the television and there's a player, you have to remember in those days, the players were actually from your region. Most of them were from Quebec. Ken Dryden, we accepted him. He was from Ontario. But most of them grew up around you, and there was no free agency. So you can count on your players being there year after year. And that was really important. Funny enough, when we had the fire, it was sort of the happiest moment in my life. It was in 1970 because my family was so close together. We stayed in a hotel room. It was one of those things where it was only after that things started to fall apart and went on for 8 years. It's funny because the parallel of my family kind of going back and forth was 8 years, and so was Ken Dryden's run. And so it was sort of a very parallel sequence of events that I thought would make a good play, and I sort of go back and forth between the two.
I have so many questions for you, but I have to ask before we run out of time.
Yes.
Has Ken Dryden talked to you, or does he know that this play exists?
Yes. In fact, my publicist in Montreal, when I did it the first time, says, why don't you just send the script to this publisher? I sent it. Within 1 day, I got a reply. He would love to read it. Within 2 days, I got the script back with a huge list of notes of corrections. And, I did a lot of studying up on things and research. But I had Wikipedia and a bunch of other things, and he'd say, well, no, that game on, October 17th, it wasn't 5-3, it was 5-4. And there was a whole list, and I realized that, his brilliance as a goalie was not just about his physical play, but he is so kind of clued into every detail, and I'm sure that translates when he's on the ice. And other things, obviously, he's inspired me when he wrote The Game. You know, he was never a writer before. He just wrote The Game. And so I was in architecture school. I said, hey, I could be a writer too.
You can be a writer too. And God, what a story. Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know them. You love them. Adam Wylde and Jax Irwin are back. The former Toronto radio stars have launched a new podcast. It's already full of viral moments. One of the biggest, Left on Red, where listeners spill about being ghosted. Take a listen.
All right, let's welcome Gabby to Left on Red. Gabby has been seeing Mel for 4 months, and it's gone about as well as things can go until the last 6 days where Mel has completely disappeared. So, Gabby, that's left you really confused.
Yeah, I am absolutely confused. I would even say that I am completely confused, and I really just, totally don't get it.
Just a lot of confusion and mystery. Okay, no, I'm sorry.
And so much awkwardness. Adam and Jax are with us here now. Good morning. It's so nice to see both of you again. It's been a minute.
Thank you for having us. It's good to be here.
And let's talk about Left on Red, because obviously it's a fan favorite.
Yeah.
I love it. It's these stories about people who get ghosted. What do you think it is about those experiences that have people go like, I need to hear more, and how this ends?
The cringe, the pure cringe of it, you're hooked, and there's this level of discomfort that you should probably not want to watch, but you just keep staying.
I also think we've all been there, and we've all wanted to find out, but I think it's sort of like the other end of the story. It's like, I can't believe that person, I thought things were going so well, and you never hear from them again.
Right.
Imagine if you could, and then you realize, oh yeah, that could be a train wreck. I don't want to know about it. Sometimes you just don't want to know the answer.
A mystery finally gets solved, and sometimes it's a mystery that shouldn't get solved.
Exactly.
But it's a lot of fun to do.
And how do you guys emotionally deal with that? Because I would be so stressed out.
Antidepressants.
Yeah.
Full medication.
You know what? We've done it for a long, long time. We started doing it here, obviously, on the radio, and so I don't want to say you become numb to it, because you don't, but you definitely are like, okay, I'm putting the shield up for this one.
Yeah.
And I hope, sometimes people seem so great too, and then it turns out they've done something really weird, and you're like, okay, well, I did not judge you properly.
I have no idea what could have went wrong. It's like we can now tell what went wrong.
Well, and then you get the full story.
Oh,
What an assessment of people.
Yeah.
You two have such great chemistry. We've always known that. How did you first meet, the two of you? Were you just put together, or did you know each other first?
We worked together on a radio station here in Toronto together when I first originally moved here from Nova Scotia. Adam was doing the afternoon show, I was doing the midday show, and we had been told by mutual friends that we would get along, and I was actually always a big fan of Adam's work. Adam's 6 months older than me, so I've always looked up to him.
I did overnights at a radio station in Halifax while she was in college.
Yeah,
so she was,
I've always been a big fan of
they
him.
listened.
So, and then when I met him, I was like, you are mine forever. You're going to be my friend forever.
Yeah.
And it was immediate.
You say that to people, but legitimately, you guys have been together for how many years now?
Well, we worked together on directly for five years, and now this is, I think we're year 7 or 8 or something. But when you moved here, was that 10 or 11 years ago?
That was almost 11 years ago, yeah.
Literally the day that she moved here, as a part of bringing her in, it was St. Patrick's Day. I remember picking her up in my car. I had a little 2-seater car. It was very cool back then.
Very small car.
And, and I drove
her
to the bar, and we were doing a big station sort of St. Patrick's Day night, and that was introducing Jax to everybody. So that's kind of where it all started.
My old guy. He's always here for me.
That's so fun. Okay, so what's it been like going from sort of a traditional radio format to the podcast format?
Hours of the day are better. Not having to wake up early, and I'm sorry, Lindsay. But I think the other thing is, we're doing it out of Jax's house. So it was her old master bedroom. She's since moved her bed into another room, so we could use the bed.
Into the attic. Into the attic.
She's sleeping in the attic.
More room for Adam and I to record,
I think it's funny. I'm glad for the time that we had in radio, because it taught us sort of the ropes and what works. But there's a little less oversight, and that's not so bad, right? Sometimes you can be a little bit more creative and do things that maybe your boss in the past or somebody else may not have liked, but you know the audience will. And that's the great thing about online, is that you will find an audience, no matter how niche it is.
Yeah, so great. Okay, well, Jax, obviously one of my favorite things that you do are the East Coast calls.
Oh,
thank you.
It's so good. This is where you cold call strangers. For those who are not familiar, watch this.
Hello?
Hey, you.
Hello?
Hey, you. How you doing?
Oh, good. I can't hear you. We're having a torrential rain and thunder and lightning storm, so.
Well, I wanted to check in. I heard you guys are getting buckets of rain.
I couldn't believe it. was over Emily's for a minute. I ran into the house, and it was dripping off me.
It's just like last summer.
Oh, this is the best. I also, like, do you mean to dip into your East Coast accent when you do these?
I didn't realize, I think, how hard I rip into it until I'm on the phone. But yeah, like anytime I'm talking to like my mom or my aunts or somebody, like I will slip into more of a Nova Scotian cadence. Like
totally.
But I can really hear it on those calls.
She was so sweet.
She was such a honey, and she was genuinely like, my God, I just got out of the rain and it is pouring here.
Yeah, just talking.
And just a sweetie, and we just kept chatting. She would have kept chatting, I'm sure.
I think my favorite thing is that Jax will often ask, what are you having for dinner? And then she'll go and make so she makes a follow-up TikTok and makes their recipe and eats it.
Oh, that's so fun. Give me more ideas. Right?
Absolutely, keep it busy.
And speaking of ideas, how do you guys come up with the content?
So obviously the Left on Reds kind of do themselves, but I think beyond that, we've always done things that are topical, right? What's in the news and that sort of thing. But in radio, we had to keep things very 3 minutes, 3 minutes at a time. Have to get back to playing the music. So we get to go a little bit deeper now and, go down the rabbit hole for celebrity stuff. So everything from like Meghan and Harry to whatever's going on with Justin Bieber right now. And then some personal life stuff too, which makes it easy. Like Jax bought a drone because she's single and she spent a whole weekend learning how to fly a drone, and I'm like, at 37.
No, I'm scared. The sky is scary.
I was like, did you get a license for that? I think you need a license to do that downtown.
As long as it's under a certain weight, Adam Wylde, I can fly it in the sky, okay? Yeah.
If you want more of this, by the way, listen to their podcast. Adam and Jax, you ever go by Axe?
We should.
That's your combo name.
Look at that brand.
I like that.
Adam
Wylde and Jax on your favorite podcast platform. Great to see both of you.
Love you guys. Thank you for having us.
Next week on your morning, full coverage of King Charles' whirlwind visit to Ottawa, including a historic delivery of the throne speech by the monarch himself.
Our mornings are about information, your community and ours.
We're all on the go. Life is busy. Our morning
is being part of your morning. Start your morning with us, weekdays on CTV and CTV News Channel. Good morning and welcome back to your morning weekend. Here's what we have coming up in this half hour.
Okay, are you craving your favorite takeout dish? Well, why not try to make it at home? Yeah, cooking expert and cookbook author Jason Skrobar gave us a lesson on how to make our favorites.
Plus, we'll stay in the kitchen learning to make some sensational salads that don't have lettuce.
But first, we have the very latest on the last days for the Bay. Canadians might be happy to learn that the Bay's iconic stripes are not disappearing. Canadian Tire announcing it will buy the Hudsons Bay intellectual property for $30 million. That includes the Bay's brands, logos, coat of arms, and those iconic stripes. And while the sale needs court approval still, it is expected to close this summer. So joining us this morning with what's next is retail expert Doug Stevens. Doug, good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie.
So these are two stores that have Canadian affiliations, even if not full ownership. They're coming together. While they don't sell a lot of the same things, I can see where the stripes would fit into Canadian Tire's overall sell plan. What do you think this is going to look like?
Yeah, so first of all, let me just say, and I don't say this very often, I think this is a 10x opportunity that Canadian Tire.
Mean?
I think the potential here, I was shocked. Frankly, I wasn't shocked that Canadian Tire made the bid, and I wasn't entirely shocked that the bid was successful, but $30 million for an iconic brand like Hudsons Bay.
That's a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I think that there's been so much reinvigoration of this brand just over the last year. What an opportune time to invest in an iconic Canadian brand that really gives Canadian Tire a massive amount of runway now into other categories, into homeware, into apparel. And I mean, in terms of the sports crossover, let's not forget that Hudsons Bay, as late as 2016, was still sponsoring Olympic teams for Canada. So this is a massive opportunity. And I think a really smart acquisition, and if anything, kind of a nice allegory for Canadian brands coming together and taking back control of Canadian assets in the environment we find ourselves in today.
I know, just gauging response from online, I think people kind of breathe sort of this sigh of relief that the stripes aren't disappearing. We're still going to see it in some way. But as a retail expert, tell me, how does something so iconically associated with the Bay transfer to Canadian Tire? Like, people think of them as the Hudsons Bay stripes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the beauty of this is that you have two Canadian brands coming together, one that's 350 years old and another that's over 100 years old. And so they share that sense of Canadiana, for one thing. And I do think that there are opportunities for crossover. We also know, Anne-Marie, that there is still outstanding bids on the part of Canadian Tire for some of the store leases. We don't know for sure what the intent is behind those leases. I suspect that we're not going to see a resurrection of the Hudsons Bay store as we knew it, but there's nothing to say that there couldn't be smaller format Hudsons Bay stores as well. So I think it gives them the opportunity for new store formats. It certainly gives them the opportunity to bring new categories of goods with credibility to consumers. And I think it really gives them an opportunity to penetrate further into apparel, whether that's through Marks or Sport Check, leveraging some of these brands.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point that it's not just the Canadian Tire stores that sell, your cleaning supplies and your automotive supplies, but they do have Sport Check. They do have Marks as well. So there are those avenues and outlets. Canadian Tire's president and CEO Greg Hicks said that this acquisition felt strategic and patriotic. What do you think of that statement?
Yeah, I certainly agree with the sentiment around patriotism. And as I said, I think the odd thing about Hudsons Bay was that I don't think even as Canadians we fully appreciated Hudsons Bay until they said it's over, and I think we all sort of stood up and paid attention at that point. And I think that really breathed a lot of equity into the brand. But I think strategically, on the strategic side, what we also have to appreciate is that Canadian Tire has built a lot of its business on the back of auto parts. And a lot of that was sort of the do-it-yourselfer market, people working on their own cars. But these days, cars are literally computers on wheels. And you don't find sort of the weekend warrior car repair person out there anymore. So I see auto parts as a declining category for Canadian Tire over the next decade. And I think apparel and sporting goods, that they have new runway now with the Hudsons Bay brand where they can find new crossovers, new incorporations. And I think that's a good thing strategically.
Well, it certainly worked when you think about Loblaw and Joe Fresh, when they incorporated houseware and clothing into their grocery stores.
Absolutely.
That worked out really well for them. Do you see any challenges with this transition?
I think that the challenge is really going to be, it's going to be having a very disciplined approach to where and when and how they use these assets. Those iconic stripes. I think there's going to be a propensity on the part of marketers within Canadian Tire to want to put that on everything initially, and I think that could be a mistake. They don't want to commodify it. They want to use it very preciously and very strategically where it makes sense and where it can really grow brand equity.
Can I ask you quickly, Doug, about the price? $30 million seems not like a lot of money for what they're getting.
I mean, isn't that the price of a single detached home in Toronto these days?
Something like that.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, you can't invest in a risky startup these days for $30 million. Right. So to buy a brand with this much heritage, and let's not forget, it's not just the Hudsons Bay brand. It's not just the iconic stripes. They're also getting Gluckstein, Distinctly Home, Hudson's North, and Zellers, all in the same grab bag for $30 million. It's a bargain.
Lots of bargains at the Bay these days. They're up to 80% off now. Retail expert Doug Stevens, thanks so much. We'll be right back.
My pleasure.
Coming up, watch as Jason Skrobar whips up our takeout favorites in the Your Morning Kitchen.
Okay. So you know that go-to delivery order that you order on repeat? I mean, we all have one, right? So today, Jason Skrobar is here to show us how to make our personal favorites at home. I'm so excited about this.
So good up here.
It's the Your Morning takeout counter that no one knew they needed.
I know. So we all got to pick something that we often order from restaurants and have it ordered to our home. But you're going to show us how to make this at home.
At home.
So I picked chicken shawarma.
Yeah.
You picked?
I picked Bugs and Cheese, which is a restaurant pasta.
And I picked the classic cheeseburger, obviously.
Ooh, so good.
So it's a good spread.
It is.
Right?
And it looks so good.
We're starting with the chicken shawarma
And
now.
I'm going to let our viewers know we've got that QR code that you can scan and follow along. Okay.
And honestly, you might think it's difficult. It all comes down to the spice blend
100%.
for the chicken. I am using chicken thighs. Obviously, there's a higher fat content and it's a lot juicier. And
They're way better.
It's just better,
They're
period.
better.
So what we did is we took the chicken thighs and we marinated it with some cumin, ground coriander. There's some cayenne. There's some cinnamon. There's coriander, I already said.
How long do you marinate it for?
You know what? You can do it for an hour. You can do it for 45 minutes. It's around that time. Okay. Lemon juice as well.
So let's build this as you're talking.
So what we did is we just opened our pitas. And I'm going to give you a little bit here. We're going to stuff these really quickly.
Okay.
So
I ripped mine a little bit.
That goes like that.
Oh my gosh.
And then, I mean, you could even just take this and add it to a salad because it's that good.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Because a chicken shawarma salad is a thing. Now, if you guys want to get started, I already made some for you today. So now it's just about adding the toppings. So what we did is we pickled some red onions and we pickled some cabbage. Okay, I'm going to give you that.
Thank you.
There. And then the sauces are always some of my favorite things. So we made a yogurt tahini sauce.
Easy to do?
Easy. There's tahini, yogurt, a little bit of lemon juice, salt and pepper. Yeah, you go for that one. And then I'm going to do this one. I added some hot sauce because I like a little bit of heat.
Did you put some on in here too?
I didn't, but I'm going to give you a little bit
a little
like
shot.
that.
Oh my
You
God.
want some hot sauce?
You guys want hot sauce?
Yeah, but I got to reluctantly put this down because we're going
I know
to
you
do mine
gotta
next.
do yours.
So basically, then I'm adding a little bit of cucumber and some fresh herbs, and then you take it and you roll it, and then you add it to, if you want to be fancy, you can add it to some parchment paper, but just take this to your table. I mean,
voila.
It's like takeout at home.
Oh, less expensive.
And less expensive.
Yeah,
and more delicious.
And a lot quicker than I think people think. So,
okay,
with
so our
this
family's
one-
like go-to order all the time is bugs and cheese, which is bug pasta with a fabulous cheese sauce.
And it's just a really easy cheese sauce. What I did is I started it off. There's a roux, which is just flour and butter.
Yeah.
I added some milk and then some grated white cheddar. To finish it off, we're going to add a little bit of cream cheese.
Hey,
and
is
then
this burning, Jason?
No, it's good.
Okay, great.
It's fine.
So we just added a little bit of cream cheese, and that just finishes off the sauce. And then if I could get you to here, you know what we'll do?
Something is on and something is burning. So I'm just going to turn this off, all of them off.
Okay.
Yep, I think it's that.
And then we're going to add the pasta to
right to here.
This, and then we're going to plate it.
Where did you find this fun pasta?
You can actually get this at bulk stores.
Ooh.
Okay, so I'm going to get you to mix that up.
Yeah, and then put it in these cute little dishes.
And then we're going to plate it up for everyone to eat. How's your shawarma over
I'm not
there?
talking because I'm just eating. It's so good.
Oh, Jason, look at
Doesn't
this
look great?
sauce. It looks exactly the same.
And the cheese sauce, the recipe's on the website.
Okay.
And then I'm going to do one
and then
for
what
each
is
of
this
us.
on here?
And then I thought we could add just a little bit of
More
extra cheese on top,
Oh my
because
God,
who doesn't like
I'm serving myself
cheesy
first, guys.
pasta?
I'm super sorry.
That's for you. If you do
Sorry,
feel
I'm
like
so rude.
giving that a break. Do you
Jason,
want?
I'm going to let Anne-Marie dig in. Let's do our burger.
Let's do one
here,
more.
and then I'll dive into that.
Jason, this tastes even better than the other one.
There you go.
Oh my goodness.
Classic burger. What we did is a smash burger here. So we used not extra lean or lean ground beef. We used medium beef, and we added, and that's all that it is you just take the beef, put it into a little ball, and you smash it on a cast iron pan.
Amazing.
I just use a spatula, or you can use the bottom of another pan to get it really flat.
Squishy.
And then some American cheese. And then we're going to do our
American cheese. We call it plastic cheese.
plastic
I love
cheese,
it.
American cheese. We're going to add a little bit of
Onion.
diced white onion.
Okay.
And then a few pickle slices on
it.
each.
Amazing.
And then ketchup, because who doesn't want ketchup on their burger?
Do you want mustard?
And mustard.
Okay. Can I just do ketchup on mine?
And just ketchup on yours.
Yeah.
And then I add a little bit of fries on the side.
Love
but
that.
that's it.
Oh, wait. I need pickles. I
And
need
your
pickles.
There you go.
Get those on there. Okay,
So
let's
now
give this
you've
a try.
got 3 recipes.
I have to eat a burger too.
You need a burger? You got, here, I'm going to give you a burger.
This is the best morning ever.
I'm going to give you a burger.
Yay!
And
this is all the
I'm
things
sorry
I love.
that I burnt the
cutting board,
but I was a
Doesn't
little bit
matter.
excited, and I was cooking on all the
Very
elements
nice.
this morning.
This burger looks amazing, Jason.
Okay, ready?
Look at that.
Cheers, cheers.
Cheers, love it.
And by the way,
Cheers.
that's the key with those like diced onions.
I know, nice
Yeah.
and little.
Okay.
Nice and little. So listen, you can get our delivery favorites made at home by scanning the QR code today. You'll find all today's recipes right there on your screen.
So when you think of salad, you typically think of lettuce. But remember, there's bean salad, potato salad, and more. So to help you think outside of the salad box, we have registered dietitian Sue Ma. Welcome.
Hello.
Look at these gorgeous options that you have for us. I should remind everybody before we get started, you can find the recipes by scanning the QR code that is on your screen.
Right.
All right, we mentioned bean salad, so we're going to start there.
Exactly. So this bean avocado corn salad uses 1 can of Canadian black beans.
Okay.
And beans are economical. They're packed with fiber, protein, iron, and they also contain prebiotics. So it's a great, healthy,
So don't skip
nutritious
this
salad.
one.
Don't skip this one. It's one of my family favorites.
Okay.
So I'm going to get you to start tossing.
Okay.
We've got black beans, some
Okay.
avocado. I'm going to toss in some corn.
Okay. Good for some crunch.
Good for some crunch and also for some color, right? And then the tomatoes. Now, vitamin C in the tomatoes will help our bodies better absorb iron from the beans, right? Now I'm going to add some red onion. And you know what? These measurements are all approximate. You can add more or less. If you like corn, add more. You like, onions, add more.
Okay.
Now the cilantro, love it or hate it.
This is
right?
controversial.
It's controversial. If you
I
don't,
love it.
I love it too. If you're not a fan of cilantro, no problem. You can always substitute parsley.
Okay.
And so this salad, it's going viral.
It's glossy, it's colorful.
It's colorful. You've heard of the dense bean salad
Yeah.
on social media. Cowboy caviar, it's sometimes called.
Cowboy caviar. I've never
Yeah.
heard that before.
So the dressing is just some fresh lime juice.
Okay.
Yep. And
That's this?
That's that. Let's add in some oil.
Okay.
Gonna get you
Smell that.
stirring. Yep. A pinch of
And you have
salt.
the recipe for this in
I
our
have the
QR
recipe,
code, Sue?
exactly.
That's amazing.
And then finally some garlic and some sugar. So we're just going to add that
Garlic
in.
and sugar, so a little bit of bite, a
Just
little bit of sweet.
bit, yeah, a little bit. And then let's pour that in. So you pour and I'll toss.
Thank you. Two-person job.
Two-person job.
Thanks.
It's so fresh. The cilantro and the fresh lime juice really do just absolutely.
Now, you've got this served with some corn chips on the side.
Yeah,
I'm going to get rid of
absolutely.
the bowl.
Complementary proteins, right? So the corn, the protein in the corn and the protein in the beans together give you a complete protein.
And the lime with the avocado
Right?
is a really nice bite.
So fresh, so fresh.
Okay, carrot salad, also one of my favorites, but you have a disaster story.
I have a disaster story. So my girlfriends and I formed a cooking club about 16 years ago, and it was my turn to make a retro-themed salad.
Okay.
So I found a carrot salad, it was just carrots, raisins, and mayonnaise, and I made it, and I thought,
Which also sounds gross on separately, but is delicious when you try it together.
but very dry, and I thought, there's no way I can bring this. So I had to amp it up a bit. So I started with some matchstick carrots, which
Okay.
is a great hack. You could also use a box grater if you have more time, or carrot ribbons, which is trending right now too, right? So we're still going to add the raisins.
Yeah.
Maybe I can get you to do some
Sure.
tossing.
Yeah, you bet.
I've added some toasted walnuts. I want crunch, texture,
Okay,
flavor,
yeah.
healthy fats to absorb the beta carotene.
See, this is why I like your stuff, Sue, because I know it's
So
good for me,
fresh.
too.
So fresh. And then some parsley,
Okay.
more or less, whatever you like, right? Add some green. That fresh herb is really going to bring out the flavor.
But one of the stars of this is the dressing.
The dressing, mayonnaise, but I've amped it up. So I've got some olive oil. I have some apple cider vinegar,
Ooh, a little bit of
honey, and
acid.
fresh orange juice. So the brightness, and the
I'm
salad.
going to let you mix because
I'll
I'm going to
mix.
help myself just in
It
salad.
travels so well. It keeps well. You can bring it to a potluck, a picnic, whatever you like. Beautiful, bright orange.
Okay.
And the juice just, the brightness, the freshness,
Oh, that
right?
dressing's really
It's
good.
So nice.
And the crunch of the carrots.
And the
is good.
crunch of the carrots. And a little bit of sweetness from the raisins, right? So that was a good one. And it was
Sweet
a
and bite.
success.
Good. Okay, this last one, classic potato salad, but you've done a twist.
I've done a little bit of a twist. So keep the skins on for fiber, right? I've added some celery and some hard-cooked eggs. You could also add pineapple, pickles, if you want that
Pineapple.
tanginess. Yeah, my mother-in-law always puts pineapple.
Really?
And so here's the fun food fact. When you cook and cool potatoes, it creates something called resistant starch, which is a starch that resists digestion in the small intestine.
Okay.
So it doesn't raise your blood sugar as much as other starches would, and it then acts as a prebiotic in the gut. So it's healthy for you.
Oh, I love
So
this.
that's the
This is
potato
really good.
salad. And then my final hack is do not throw away the roots of your green onions.
Okay.
You want to use your green onion, chop it off, and then add these roots to a jar of water, a cup of water.
I'm going to show everybody how much water you have.
Just
so
a
they
little
know.
bit.
Just
You
a
can
little bit, just to cover the root.
Yeah, you can refill the water as needed. And then 7 to 10 days later,
Listen,
Right?
Gardening, nutrition, and salad facts all in one hit. I love it so much. Listen, today's recipes are at the QR code, so you can scan that and get them. Sue, thank you for lunch.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back. Coming up Monday on Your Morning, we'll check out some apps that will help your gardening this summer.
May is Asian Heritage Month in Canada, and if you're looking for ways to celebrate and you just really want a good book, we can steer you in that direction from Canadian creators, Joining us with her selection of books celebrating Asian culture is Vicki Vansickle. Great to have you back.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
Okay, so we're starting off with picture books, and they're just so colorful.
Yes, they are. And the first one in particular, Salt Princess. This is a folk tale from Pakistan. It's about a king who asks, "How much do you love me?" And one of his daughters says, "I love you as much as salt." And he takes offense to that. And she means it in that you need salt in life to make everything sweeter and taste better, but he doesn't sort of see that right away. So this is a very classic fairy tale. There are different versions of it all over the world. This one also has the Urdu text in it as well, which sort of makes it, set it out a little bit from the others in the pack. Sundays are for feasts. This is about a family that goes to Lebanon every summer to visit extended family. And for the first time, the little girl in the book has been asked to make the hummus. Ooh. And the family meal is a big deal, and so she's a little bit anxious about it. I really love the art. It's very sort of warm and homey and homespun feeling. And I think anyone can relate to that idea of wanting to be perfect, or that anxiety of getting it right. And that's something that, of course, the whole family is happy that they're there. And there's a recipe for hummus. I love a book that comes with a recipe.
Love that.
So this one has it there. And then what Lolo wants is a really lovely intergenerational story about a grandchild and the grandfather. And they really, really connect over a love of drawing and their Filipino heritage, particularly food. And in this book, Lolo has started to forget things. But what really helps him is drawing. And that's something that the child reminds them of. So again, a really lovely intergenerational story. Again, really bright, really lovely, and very touching.
Moving on to chapter books, and you have a book here that explores racism through the eyes of a child.
Yes, it does. So Every Little Bit Olive Tran is about a girl who is sort of experiencing racism in her community for the first time. And this is something that people will unfortunately have happen. Often people will say, "What about my kids read about racism? Why do I want to read them about something stressful?" It's because they're living that. And so this is about a community that really comes together. It's very supportive. There's a party at the end. And I'm really hoping we see more of Olive Tran in a series.
Very cool. The next two are for middle graders, and I love the premise behind both of them.
Yes, they're both incredibly fun. The first one is a sequel. This is Mo Sito, in legendary martial star. So she is a Taekwondo star, and she's going to Hong Kong to film a martial arts movie. But of course, her nemesis from the first book come back. There's these ancient texts that have to do with martial arts secrets that are potentially being stolen. The kind of behind the scenes of the film industry makes it even a little bit more fun. So that's a great one. And then Spirit Service is a new book. It's sort of described as Ghostbusters meets the Babysitters Club.
So fun.
So it's about a group of kids who find a magic telephone that can contact the spirits or the dead. And so they decide to use this partially because they're trying to raise money for their arts program, which has been cut. So there's like a bit of social justice in here as well, but are really fun. And again, hopefully the beginning of a series.
That's very cool. I love that. The back says the middle grade Ghostbusters story we've all been waiting for.
Exactly. And that's very accurate, I think.
Cool. Finally, what do you have for teens?
For teens, the first one is a romance, kind of a sad, beautiful, almost science fiction romance. Meet Me at Blue Hour is about a clinic in South Korea where you can either have your memories removed or you can have them retrieved. And it's about a young girl who's there helping her mother, and she runs into her childhood friend who doesn't remember her. So she realizes he didn't just disappear from her life, he had her removed from his memories, and she doesn't know why. And that story kind of unfolds in a really beautiful way.
That's such an interesting
Really interesting, a little bit of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind there, but for teens. And then the last one, this is set in Canada, and this is about a Palestinian Canadian teenager who loves a list. This is her last year of high school, she knows what she wants to do, and then everything's kind of blows up in her face when her boyfriend's like, "You know what, I would like to see this other lady." And so she decides to fake date. This is a very classic rom-com trope. This guy she meets who's a TikTok dancer. And so they really connect connect over their culture. It's really fun. Again, this is the kind of YA that if you're an adult who also likes romance, I think you would enjoy it. But having that kind of fake dating in a Canadian setting was really fun to read.
That's awesome. So many great choices for us, Vicki.
Yes,
Thank
so
you.
much to read.
That's it for all of us here on Your Morning Weekend. Don't forget to scan these QR codes for Your Morning, our newsletter, and listen to more great conversations on Your Morning, the podcast.
And we have another great week coming up. I mean, on Monday, we've got full coverage of King Charles and Queen Camilla's state visit ahead of Tuesday's speech from the throne.
On Tuesday, some great parenting tips on how to say no as a parent or caregiver.
Oh, and then on Wednesday, food writer and cookbook author Dan Clapson will show us 3 recipes that have been inspired by 3 different regions in our beautiful country.
Thursday, we'll learn more about how and why walking is being prescribed as a form of medicine to some patients.
And then on Friday, a panel discussion on the experiences of racialized women navigating a quickly changing workplace.
It is going to be another great week ahead. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you on Monday.